Hello and welcome to Alienating the Audience, a podcast for the truly dedicated science fiction connoisseur. I'm Andrew Heaton, the thinking man's nerd. On this episode, I'm actually interrupting the lineup of guests and content. I'm pushing it all back a week because I am so freaking excited about Star Trek Picard. I wasn't even going to talk about the series until the season concludes, but we're just going to jump in now. Nick Sperdute joins me to discuss our great hopes for this thus far fantastic series, and after we geek out over Patrick Stewart's magnum opus, we'll do a little intergalactic vagabonding and tell you about our very awkward trip to the planet Beta Z. Now, before we get into analyzing the Picard series, however, I thought you and I could learn a little more about the character of Picard himself. Now, I'm assuming, if you're listening to this podcast, and this episode in particular, that you already are well-versed with Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Very likely you own an action figure and or cardboard cutout of him. So I'm not going to condescend to you with boilerplate Picard facts. When he graduated from Starfleet, or the fact that he's French, or artificial heart, all that stuff. I'm assuming you already know that stuff. Rather, I'd like to share with you some deep Picard info that I myself have recently learned out of sheer unbridled enthusiasm. So, Gene Roddenberry named Jean-Luc Picard after one or both of the 19th century Picard brothers, who were explorers and scientists. And they incidentally spell their name P-I-C-C-A-R-D, so it might be pronounced Pickard, the way Q says it in one episode when he's making fun of Captain Picard. But in any event, the Picards. Auguste Antoine Picard was a Swiss scientist and inventor. He was best known for his record-breaking helium-filled balloon flights that he used to study the Earth's upper atmosphere and from there to study cosmic radiation, which in turn he used to help Albert Einstein. Apparently they knew each other. In fact, Auguste Picard was the first human being to ever enter the stratosphere, which he did via balloon. And that also probably means that he's the first person in human history to have witnessed the curvature of the Earth with his own eyes, as opposed to deducing it theoretically or mathematically. Now, he did that for a while, but right before World War II, and then after the war, he realized he could pressurize the gondola he'd been using for these high-altitude hot air balloon rides, and then add weights and turn it into a submersible. And then it became a vehicle to plunge the depths of the ocean itself. His brother Jean-Félix Picard, so we can clearly see the linguistic connection here, Jean-Luc Picard, Jean-Félix Picard, was born in 19th century Switzerland, died 1963 Minneapolis. He was a chemist, an engineer, a professor, and, of course, a high-altitude balloonist, the only thing you and I know about the Picard family. He invented clustered high-altitude balloons, and his wife Jeanette Picard invented the plastic balloon. I don't know what any of that means. However, I am told it contributed to modern plane and space flights that we enjoy today. So that's where the Picard name comes from. The character himself was initially inspired by Captain Horatio Hornblower. Now, I'm embarrassed to tell you that despite how much I love Gilbert and Sullivan and the snappy uniforms of the Napoleonic period, I am personally unfamiliar with Horatio Hornblower. So let's read a description of this character from Wikipedia. And as I do so, see if it resonates with you and your understanding of Picard. Hornblower is courageous, intelligent, and a skilled seaman. But he is also burdened by his intense reserve, introspection, and self-doubt, and is described as unhappy and lonely. Despite numerous personal feats of extraordinary skill and cunning, he belittles his achievements by numerous rationalizations, remembering only his fears. He consistently ignores or is unaware of the admiration in which he is held by his fellow sailors. Well, I think the first part of that certainly applies to Picard, right? Intelligent and courageous, but reserved, introspective, and kind of unhappy and lonely. Patrick Stewart, the man behind Picard, the actor who portrayed him, was originally considered for the role of Data. The mind reels to consider Patrick Stewart playing Data. I can't imagine living in a universe in which Patrick Stewart doesn't play Picard, but one in which he plays Data? That just doesn't compute on it. There is no mirror universe in which that could even be possible. But, in fact, Gene Roddenberry didn't want him to play Picard at all, because he wanted a captain who was masculine, virile, and, of course, had a lot of hair. And at this point, the storyline of how Patrick Stewart becomes Picard kind of gets foggy for me. I wasn't there. It's difficult for me to follow the back and forth. So I don't know if Rick Berman et al. Talked Roddenberry into it, or if maybe Roddenberry was by this time a fairly powerless creative producer and couldn't actually stop Patrick Stewart from getting it. I don't know. In any event, Patrick Stewart got the role of Picard, and at the time when he got it, he thought Star Trek The Next Generation would probably only last a single season. But it would give him an excuse to come to California and get a tan, so he went with it. Patrick Stewart was initially confused as to why they would select him as opposed to some guy with a granite jawline and a full head of hair, so he showed up to Paramount along with a toupee, which looked ridiculous. I've not been able to find any film footage of this alternate wigged Picard with hair in the Star Trek franchise, but if you Google it, there are a couple of images you can find of Picard in uniform with a hairpiece on, and it looks absurd. The photo I'm thinking of is, it was going to be in a flashback. They were going to put in a TNG episode, but they decided against the sequence and didn't put it in. And I can tell you, Patrick Stewart bald looks confident and capable. Patrick Stewart balding looks like he's mismanaging his own scalp, and the follicles are leaving from lack of competency. So good call staying bald, Patrick Stewart and Star Trek producers. Now, to Gene Roddenberry's credit, despite being initially skeptical of Patrick Stewart, he was staunchly anti-toupee. One of the producers thought, in the future, surely we would have cured baldness. Therefore, Patrick Stewart should wear a wig. And Gene Roddenberry, being Gene Roddenberry, insisted that in the future we would have evolved to the point no one would care. Chances are, you say the word data rather than data when referring to your phone or internet usage, or, of course, the android lieutenant commander of whom we shall soon speak. However, if we hop in the Wayback Machine and head to 1987, the pronunciation of data had not yet become triumphant in our lexicon. If you go back and watch previews for Star Trek TNG before the series came out, sometimes they call him Mr. Data, and Brent Spiner himself thought that was how he was supposed to say his character's name. However, Patrick Stewart said data, and his voice is so intensely commanding that Brent Spiner and the gods themselves heard him say data and agreed to do so themselves. And now we all do. Couple of Easter eggs to point out in the pilot episode. Picard kicks off with Captain Picard playing poker with Data in a dream, and while the intro is very spacey, it's playing the decidedly 20th century song Blue Skies. Why is that? It's because Data sings that song at Troy and Riker's wedding in Star Trek Nemesis. So at the very beginning of this series, there's an immediate tie-in to the Data character and the last film of the TNG franchise. Picard is woken up from that dream sequence when he relives the synthetics attack on Mars, which apparently CBS has already done. If you have CBS All Access, and you have to have it in order to watch Picard, look for Children of Mars, which is a short where the Utopia Planitia shipyard, where Enterprise and Voyager were constructed, gets blown up by the synthetics from the perspective of school children. So if, like me, after the next episode of Picard, you can't quite wait a week, look that up, because apparently there's a kind of prequel episode I didn't know about. Okay, now that we're sufficiently warmed up on Picard, let's jump in. In a moment, Nick Sperdute will come on and we'll talk about our most recent adventure as we usually do. However, something momentous, something huge has happened in our galaxy, and that is that Picard has aired. The first episode is out. The pilot is out. And so we're going to do like just a quick, 10-minute review because it is the most important thing in my life at the moment. I don't know about you, Nick.
100%. Couldn't agree more. Very excited, as you know.
So I'm going to go ahead and preface this. It's only been a week. Maybe not everybody's seen Picard yet, but we're probably going to have spoilers in it. I don't know that there's anything huge to spoil, but nonetheless, fair warning.
Yeah, maybe you can put in the time in which this review's over in the notes for the podcast here.
Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Hopefully I'll remember to do that. Good luck, future Heaton. We'll see if you recall. So I'll say I really liked the first episode. I was so worried that I wasn't going to like it because I love Patrick Stewart and Picard, and I love Star Trek. And so I was worried that it was going to... I'll tell you the thing I was really worried about is, in the previews, it is very heavy on the young lady we don't know the identity of,
Yes.
at least prior to watching the first episode. And I was really afraid it was going to be a character I don't know or care about with a quest that is clearly made up that Picard is now in. For example, like... oh no, we have to save this young woman because she's the only one with the keys to the time gate of Mortar. Or like something like that where I'm like, this seems weird. But it wasn't that. Like, because like she's Data's daughter in some capacity, which means that Captain Picard immediately has a sense of affinity and loyalty to her. And so I feel looped in now too.
Well, as you know, I don't love, and I know you don't love either, the additional characters that they just keep throwing into the canon.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't mind this because it is a continuation as opposed to just saying, hey, and by the way, Spock has a sister. And it's like, oh, no, this is something that is going to continue this, is going to give us some extra added benefit later on in the Star Trek universe. So I don't mind this. So the episode was called Remembrance, and it was directed by Hanel Culpepper. If that's how you say it, I don't remember. But I personally was very enthused right away. You know, they start with the dream sequence with old Data.
Yep.
For lack of a better. I mean, what can you say? I mean, he's
puffy Data.
Yeah, a bloated Data is involved. And, I was a little concerned about that early on because I was like, but he doesn't look like... Can't they make him look like original Data at this point? Don't they have the technology?
I thought he looked okay. I thought he looked okay. In the previews, he looked a little...
I agree. I think he looked better in the show than he did in the previews. But
yeah.
I think because it's a dream, I think it works. I think that when they show his pieces later on in the show, I think that looked more accurate.
Well, it might well have been an actual mask. Or actually, it probably was 100. Now that I think about it, probably not. Just taking Brent Spiner's face and CGIing is probably a mask. So that makes sense.
You know what? I think you can also sell that dream as it is. He's dreaming of Data getting older because that's how his mind conceptualizes age. Like he himself is getting older, so it makes sense that he would think, even though he knows that this can't happen, but the idea of it happening is not foreign to him, so his brain just kind of makes that happen. It makes sense to me. That's fair.
Well, and on that note, something that I really enjoyed about it is I felt like the character of Captain Picard has dramatically softened.
I agree.
So like we all love Picard, but in TNG, Picard always kind of struck me as a good father who cares about like a fatherly figure with his crew. However, a very distant, like if he were a dad, he is absolutely the kind of dad who would send his kids to boarding school. Like he's good, but reserved. And not super touchy-feely, but but in the episode, he seems like he's just overcome with tenderness when he meets Data's daughter, and it's a very real and just kind of softened and more empathetic character than he previously was, and I like it. I think it's a good development.
I agree, and I think that makes a lot of sense happening over time. I think what it does happen, or what it does work for, is I think it gives us a little bit more of a look into him himself, you mean
Patrick Stewart?
Patrick Stewart himself. He is a softer person than what they would have you believe in real life. You know what I mean? Like he has
suspect
more
that's
of.
True. I mean, I don't know. I suppose I know Captain Picard far better than I know Patrick Stewart. However, because I've never met Patrick Stewart and I've seen less Patrick Stewart than I have Patrick Stewart playing Picard. That said, though, the stuff that I've seen of Patrick Stewart, he does seem to be a warmer individual, a little bit more touchy-feely. He's British, whereas Picard is French. There are some key distinctions there.
I do personally. I think this is a really nice development as well. I agree with you completely. I think it happens with age. in real people. So why not have
agree,
it happen in age with a character? And I think he's playing this very much, as we would say, to the top of his intelligence. He's just like working through how this character would have developed over time. And he also, we have to remember too, he's not on a ship anymore.
Right.
He's not the captain on a ship. He hasn't been for a while now. So he has the ability. So, so he has the ability to not have to be as stern and, ready to go fight some.
He doesn't have to hold it together constantly and be the stentorian, respectable leader in all situations. He can be himself.
There's not that pressure that was probably causing that in the first place. It's not really on his shoulders as much.
So, Nick, what do you think about just the general format of the show? Because TNG was very procedural, very episodic.
As was
this one clearly, as was TOS, as was Voyager, and most of Deep Space Nine. This one seems like it is going to have a plot arc that is building from episode to episode.
Well,
and it seems to also be a little bit more dark than optimistic.
Sure. Well, I think the bet there is TV has kind of changed a good amount. I think the way that we watch these things has developed. And I think in this case, I was wondering how they were going to make this all happen as well. But I understand the direction they went. It's more of a HBO direction. You know what I mean? Like it's more how they decided television works now. It's happened on Discovery. That's very much how they kind of run the show. There's an overarching big plot that really is how they go about it. It's more movie storytelling than episodic television storytelling, Yeah,
I like that. I mean, I think
I don't mind it. Yeah,
I would definitely prefer to have a slow build plot arc than a procedural show that reboots every single episode. I would find that a little bit tedious at this point.
Oh, I agree.
I am curious to see how this plays out long term in that I feel like the Roddenberry vision for Star Trek is one of boundless optimism and the perfection of human nature insofar as it can be.
Right.
And we've already seen a darker world that this is into. So, Picard has left Starfleet in protest because he, in his words, believes Starfleet is not
because
Starfleet
it's no
anymore.
longer Starfleet.
It's no longer Starfleet. We're done here. And there's been some other stuff like apparently synthetics we don't. I guess they're not. Presumably they're not Data style since they were never able to. I don't know. I'm a little confused in that since they seem to have cloned Data, which but in any event, they created like a class of androids and they went AWOL and killed everybody on Mars, or at least 92,000 people on Mars, and have now outlawed them. So there's a slight dystopian element to it. There's a sense that Starfleet ideals have crumbled, which is very counter to most of the Star Trek canon.
You know what I actually find really beautiful about this is I love that they basically say in this episode, as they're going through, that like they can't really remake Data. That he was the best of what they could make.
Right, yeah.
And I love that, because, I mean, in every other Star Trek series, especially Discovery now, which is supposed to be in the past, but they have technology that's way in the future, it's very much like them improving and being like, yes, no, but we can do all these things, that we have all these abilities. And them just like the simplistic thing of being like, well, this thing that was done so many years ago, we can't do it. Like, and they give a reason for it, but it's just the idea that all of this time and they couldn't actually make it work.
Yeah, I like that. It makes Data more unique.
I agree.
And it also raises the stakes. Like, I did not like Nemesis. Nemesis is probably my least favorite Star Trek film. And one of the things that I didn't like about it was, first of all, I didn't like that they killed Data. And I'm going to say absolute heresy here. From a Star Trek canon development, I think it would have, if they were going to end the franchise entirely and they didn't know that they were going to make Picard 20 years later, it would have made sense for me to leave Data alive and kill Picard selflessly, because that would have been like the definitive, it is done now. And also Data would have been the only character that could, live in terms of immortality. But then at the end, they download his memories into B4. And it's like, okay, so are we re-microwaving search for Spock.
Right, yeah.
And presumably they just wanted to keep the door open, but they've avoided that. I had wondered, I had thought initially that they were going to bring Lal back, Data's daughter from the original TNG series. And I thought that is it Dosh or Daj?
Dodge, yeah.
Daj. I thought that basically, because she's, a pretty young lady who's a brunette, I thought maybe like the plot arc was going to be that Lal's body had been given to Starfleet or whatever, and they'd figured out a way to rejuvenate her and like reprogram her. That does not seem to be the case, but I thought that would be kind of an interesting tie-in. And then there would be the direct, she is literally Data's daughter in the sense that he constructed her.
Yeah, you know what? That's a great idea, but they didn't do it.
Nope, they didn't do it. Instead, they did
let's move on.
Cybernetic neurological cloning or something which I hope that they expand on that a little bit, because I'm a little bit. I don't quite understand how they're cloning an android and they can't rebuild Data, but they can make a daughter from him. Like I don't quite get that.
No, I agree on that point. I mean, I'd say overall, I mean, they're like 45-minute episodes, which I think is great. Because I'm glad they didn't try to do like a full hour episode, because that kind of gets a little long. And I'm glad they're not little quick ones.
Right.
But yeah, I do find
like 45-minute episodes.
Yeah, well, it was 46. So if they would have done 45, I'd have been really pissed.
Yeah.
Because you know me, I'm like, I need that extra min to kind of chill out for a second. Yep. Get into it.
You're a busy guy. It's why you say min. Continue, please.
Yeah, exactly. So the point is, I do like where they're going with this plot arc. I loved the Borg reveal, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So
so cool.
Well, hold on. Before we get into that, real quick, you had told me that apparently Patrick Stewart personally selected a pit bull.
That is true. Yeah. That was on like I don't know even what interview. It was probably like a Jimmy Fallon or some, or no, Stephen Colbert, I think. But it was one of those. And I just saw it on the internet, but it was basically like, he said, first of all, he wants to have a dog for his number one, and the reasoning was because it was like, there's a lot more you can infer from an older man with a dog.
Yeah.
Like having that emotional connection with a dog in there, as opposed to just being by himself. And he specifically picked a pit bull to show how loving they are and how much, like, him and his wife, they give a lot to this idea of that, that pit bulls shouldn't be a banned dog for flights and all this thing, and it's really nice. I mean, it's a really cool thing, and the dog in it's very cute, and it's a really nice relationship to have, and just him saying number one to the dog is really just amazing. I mean, the idea that he named his dog number one, like in canon, is so funny to me. Yeah. That's like Kirk having a dog named Spock or McCoy is really funny.
So we'll get to the Borg thing in a second. The other thing that I thought was interesting, I liked the Romulan tie-in. I think
me too.
Sucks to be Romulans, by the way, because regardless of what timeline and your planet blows up.
Yeah.
Although I guess that makes sense though, because basically, you know what? Now that I think about it, because at the beginning of the Kelvin timeline, Spock is in the regular timeline trying to save Romulus from supernova, and so it's just playing off that. Presumably, it's the same event. That Ambassador Spock is going to go to, and Picard is instrumental in trying to relocate the 900 million Romulan refugees, some of whom work on his vineyard, which I think is cool.
Yeah. I love the whole vineyard aspect. That's like my favorite bit.
Yeah, it's nice. It's interesting too. Like it was a weird touch that he was wearing a tie in the interview. Like that's I think the first time I've ever seen a necktie in Star Trek. But it makes it feel more. It makes it feel a little bit more real to me. It makes it feel a little bit more tethered to the world in which I know. So yeah, the Borg thing. What did you make of that? Because it's
briefly, I'll say that I did like his collar was slightly off.
Yeah.
Like it was just up instead of down, and I was like,
there was still a touch of Star Trek to it.
Spacey enough, I guess. Yeah. It's a spacey enough collar.
Right. Space collar. How do you want a collar? I'd prefer a space collar. I don't want an arrow collar. I want a space collar.
But I did like your Patrick Stewart's lovely. But I did, as I've told you before, but I did like the whole Borg. I mean, first of all, I told you, I think that I was really happy that girl died.
Okay. Why? Because I was like, I like the Tinder relationship.
No. I like that she died because that gave them a purpose, and I like that she wasn't just there, and the whole thing was just going to be us seeing her. I mean, she was cool, but I like that there's this extra tie-in that makes it a little more difficult, and it gets him on a journey for the series, which is apparently the point. You'd think. So he goes on this journey to try to find this twin,
right.
Data daughter, 2, as I will now refer to her.
He's probably got a sense of indebtedness on top of all else now, because he's already failed once.
Yeah,
Doesn't want to fail twice. Yeah.
So see, now you're starting to fall into my theory here, Mr. I didn't want her to die.
Well, I didn't know she was going to at the beginning. I was genuinely surprised by it. What I thought was going to happen. I thought when she was melting or whatever, I thought that they were going to just repair her.
Oh,
Because I'm like, that's pretty early to kill a main character.
Yeah. Well, no, you know what? It was a lovely little twist. And I think you needed that. I think we needed that little twist and some heavy action in that first episode. That gives them some leeway, I think, a little bit. I'm afraid it's going to be super duper actiony. Because that's what they do now with any of these things, any show where they try to especially Star Trek, they're just well, now we can do all this super duper crazy action. Let's go for it. So I'm a little afraid of that, because that's not really the point of Star Trek. It's not to just have explosions and all that crap.
Well, you and I saw. Scenes. I don't even remember what the name of the Star Trek movie was, but I call it Star Trek: Fast and Furious in Space.
Was it Into Darkness?
Is that the one where they go to some planet and there's like a super white literally white? Yeah, Star Trek Beyond.
That was when I scoffed loudly in the theater.
Yeah, I wasn't
loud.
I was like, it's great that you guys have a budget, but could you go back to making Star Trek, because this was just a waste of everybody's time.
Yeah, it's one of those things where once they the budget is one of my favorite things about Star Trek and Star Wars, because it gets to make all these things that we really love and really want to see real, or pretty real looking at least, and you're like, oh, this is exactly what
it's not just
Roddenberry probably thought it would look.
The team hanging out on yet another very clearly converted Western set, because it's the only thing they have access to.
Yeah, exactly. So I did love that, but yes, I agree with you. They make it too far, and it becomes this big, fight scene extravaganza and whatever.
Yeah. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what the Romulans. I mean, I think the Romulans are going to play really big in the series, because they're both. He has a kind of salvific role with them, like the people at his vineyard, but also the people that attack him are apparently Romulans. Because I at first assumed that they were Section 31 or something. I thought that they were some shadowy wing of Starfleet that's coming in and doing extrajudicial killings or something. Turns out, no, at least I don't think so. The Romulans have some kind of presence there. And then there's also going to be a tie-in to Bruce Maxwell, who was a character in TNG. Bruce Maxwell, as you'll recall, is the guy that wanted to disassemble Data.
Yes,
and in The Measure of a Man, and Absolutely. Is stopped in his tracks by Captain Picard, and then becomes friends with Data, because Data's a stand-up guy and doesn't really have human emotions the same way. He's not enraged that this man tried to disassemble him. He ends up having a correspondence with him. He references him at a couple of episodes after that as just being pen pals with him, because he does wish him luck and helps him with his research. So my presumption is I think they're going to bring Bruce Maxwell back. They've already alluded to him. I think Bruce Maxwell is going to be very pro android. I think he's going to have come around and be the cheerleader in chief of the androids. I'm very curious. At some point we'll see the synthetics, surely, because they led that attack. And it'll be interesting to see what did they go haywire? Are they evil?
Right.
Were they?
Yeah. Is there an actual group behind them?
Yeah. Were they tricked? Were they? Yeah. We're I don't know. How do they fit in with the Romulans? Sure. How do the Borg factor in? The mind reels.
Well, the Borg stuff I love. Obviously, I love that. Hopefully, there's no Klingons. That's all I pray for.
What if they bring the Klingons back and they've changed the makeup yet again? That would I will just have a conniption fit.
I mean,
at this
point,
give birth to
I
kittens.
couldn't like Klingons less. But I've never been a big Klingon fan. Not that they were in TOS a lot, but I didn't like them then, and I didn't like them in.
Really?
Just not my style. I just. Yeah. But can't we just have some Andorians?
You're really into pro wrestling. Like, you're really into pro wrestling. I'm surprised that you would not enjoy Klingons, because they seem like they would dovetail well with the pro wrestling world.
Just give me like Bajorans or Andorians or something fun. Come on, like we have so many different things in the Star Trek universe. You know, put some effort in. There's a lot more allies out there, or enemies even, that can be kind of just, you know. What if they brought in like the Orions or the green people? You know.
Oh,
like,
right.
Wouldn't that be something? That would be
Orion
nuts.
Syndicate? Yeah.
You know, that'd be crazy. Like, why not go a little bit further? See, they have the benefit right now. Picard has the benefit right now of being in the future. And that sounds silly because it's all in the future.
Right. But yeah.
Being in the future.
Right.
As far as we've gone, as far as I know, I don't think there's any shows that have taken place after it.
No, there are episodes in Voyager
where they go forward
Captain
to the
Braxton,
future.
who's from the 25th century, where Starfleet exists and has like a temporal directive, but we've never seen a series set beyond the 24th century.
And there's not that much about it. Talked about. So there is so much room for fun, kind of different things. So why not just bring in just like a whole bunch of different groups and different species and stuff? I think go for it.
I disagree with you, particularly if we're gonna go down the route of space opera, which I think is what we're doing now. We're stepping out of the old TOS Twilight Zone on a spaceship thought experiment mode and getting into Black Mirror meets Star Trek, which I think is going to be awesome. Or not Black Mirror, it's more like the tail end of Deep Space Nine, where it's like plot heavy and a lot of intrigue and that kind of thing. Great, good stuff. If that is the case, if it's going to be space opera, I would much rather it be established groups that we are aware of, because then we know their emotions.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with, but there are more established groups that just don't get any mention most of the time.
like the Breen, who finally get their due at the end of Deep Space Nine. Yeah, the Andorians, I don't think ever really get as much space as they should, unless they're bigger in Enterprise. I know they factor into 1 or 2 episodes, but I don't know if like season 2 or 3 they get any more. They would be cool. Clearly, the Romulans are going to be in it.
Get a couple of those in there.
I bet they will. Man, I hope there's like some. I really hope there's just some like 5-second thing where Garrick is president of Cardassia. They call to check out him. Yeah, I bet because there's lots of pieces that they'll need to fill us in on, because it's basically been. Let me think. So the end of TNG is chronologically what? Maybe 10 years before the end of Deep Space Nine, I think. Am I getting that right?
I think you're right.
So we're about 10 years in the timeline past the end of the Dominion War. So Cardassia is presumably putting itself back together. I'll say one thing that I'm a little bit confused by is if it's the Romulan Empire and Romulus and Remus have been destroyed from the supernova, why are the Romulans refugees on Earth? Like, I'm not being anti-Romulan refugee here.
I know what you mean.
Totally welcome to import them to France. I'm just saying, like, if it's an empire, don't they have like a bunch of planets? And wouldn't they rather go to those other planets than their historic enemies? I'm not really clear on that.
Yeah, no, I'm a little confused by that myself. Maybe we'll get into it. I don't know, but
or maybe it's like an empire in the an empire in the sense not that it has a bunch of planets that are populated by Romulans. Maybe it was more like the old Roman Empire, hence the name.
Oh, yeah.
Where like Romulus like dominated other species but did not have planets outside of its system. Maybe they were all concentrated there, but just controlled a bunch of subservient systems.
Well, here's what I'll say. If there aren't any Tellarites in this series before season 2, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to feel.
Yeah, I think
like just having some pig people? I mean, why not?
I think they'll do quite a lot of fan service. I was pleased that they didn't overdo the fan service.
Agreed.
And that, they Data was in it, but Data wasn't in there as like a wink. He played a purposeful function in the pilot.
Well, it seems like even from like little things I've seen with Riker and everything, it seems like that is going to be the case throughout. Is they're not just going to shove them in; they will have a purpose.
Yeah,
and that's what I hope.
To completely jump stuff here, we don't have to go on a rabbit hole here, but like I think the J.J. Abrams signature move, as I figured, I used to think the J.J. Abrams signature move was lens flares.
Lens flares, yeah.
I now think the J.J. Yeah, we talked about this on the Star Wars one.
Probably.
the Rise of Skywalker we did a few episodes back. The J.J. Abrams signature move is for everybody to be in a really tight pinch and go, well, I guess this is it, guys. And then have a voice from the back of the room go, not if I can help it.
Yeah.
Oh, and you turn around and it's the beloved character from another film. Like that always happens with it. So, but it doesn't look like they're doing that. It doesn't look like they're going to just be winking at the audience. I think they're going to reincorporate a lot of elements. They clearly put thought into it, which I'm glad about. Like, I don't get the impression that they were like, what do Star Trek fans like? They like an old bald guy? Okay, throw him into a film. Like, I don't get that impression. I think that
I also think Patrick Stewart has a little bit of control over this thing.
He's one of the.
Seemingly.
I think I watched the credits, and he is with two other people, the executive producer.
Right. Yeah.
So,
he's maybe not writing, but he is. I think he is heavily involved because I don't think he would have done it had he not been.
I agree. That was why that's what I've been saying for a while. Is I have enough faith in Patrick Stewart as an actor not to get involved in a junk project for the sake of doing a junk project. I don't think he would reprise.
Nemesis happened, so.
Oh God, that's true. And Insurrection, which Insurrection would have been an okay episode. It was not. They could have done far better in the latter two films of the TNG franchise.
Well, I don't think this is going to be the last time we go into this and discuss it. So I'm glad we got the ball rolling here.
Yeah. Okay, I think I've got all of my initial thoughts out on it.
Me too.
Yeah, great.
You want to rate it? You want to rate the first episode? Are you ready for that? Are you prepared?
I don't want to do an episode by episode a 1 out of 10 scale just because I don't want to get caught up too much in the details, but I will say that I am enjoying it and I'm very hopeful that it's going to be really cool, and I'm glad that they've already lit a second season. Also, one quick thing, isn't it like it's crazy to me, but good crazy, that like a 70-year-old bald guy is a leading man in a multi-million-dollar series on TV. I'm like, this is a cool thing.
I'm going to say 9.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll give it a 9 as well. All right, yeah, it's a 9. Well, hey, good insights there, Nick. And I'm excited about it. I'll watch it this Thursday, and we'll reconvene soon to discuss.
All right, buddy.
Every week, my fellow comedian friend and I, Nick Sperdute and myself, we go to some world to perform comedy. And recently, we went to Beta Z, which is the Betazoid homeworld for the Beta Z Fringe Festival.
I got to say, not a long stretch. Like, we're called humans, and we're on Earth, and they're on Beta Z, and they're called Betazoids. I'm just saying, it feels a little easy, you know?
Yeah.
It's not as easy as Vulcans, right?
It's weird for a planet that prides itself on being touchy-feely, that really just, really takes pride in being empathetic. My feelings were hurt constantly on that planet. Like, it's not even that I didn't like the place. I just felt bad leaving.
I don't want to say you brought that upon yourself.
Okay.
But you kind of brought that upon yourself. Just a smidge.
All right. So on Earth, here's how it works on Earth. If anybody's listening to the podcast that is not on Earth, Earth, these horrible thoughts will pop into your head.
Right.
And you just don't say anything about them. You pretend they're not there. And that's the regular...
to the best of us.
That's the human experience, is you see somebody in ridiculous shorts and you're like, hey man, did a 1970s Bermuda call because they want their shorts back? You don't say that.
But you don't say it. No.
Right.
You think it real hard and in their direction, but you don't necessarily actually put it into the ether. Exactly.
And then no one has any problem with it. But... oh my God, that is not how it works on Beta Z. On Beta Z, it just, they all hear your thoughts and they're usually horrible and they get mad at you and, just the whole time, like, from beginning to end. And I'll say that the ones that got me in the most trouble were in a sense flattering about the women I was thinking them about. But I want to stress this here. I didn't say what I was thinking. I just can't control who hears my thoughts.
That's true, yes. And I'm glad for my relationship with you that I can't hear your thoughts.
Yeah, me too. I think it's best for all of us.
Very glad.
Yeah, like I would be pen pals with a Betazoid totally, if any Betazoids are listening, more than happy to be pen pals with you. Email exchanges are great. I'm in a couple of Betazoid Facebook groups. But if I'm going to be friends, if say I were going to like move into the Betazoid neighborhood of Los Angeles or something, I would need to have some ground rules with the Betazoids. Of course, it's oh man, they didn't give you a hard time though. You were fine.
They could not read my thoughts,
right? Which was weird.
You know what? I've been telling you this for a while now, but you should really get into yoga. Really try to meditate more. I've been meditating in the morning for about 20 minutes every morning. And it's weird at first. You kind of have to work on your sleep schedule and everything. Your whole body kind of shifts, but it's worth it.
Well, okay,
it's worth it.
I tried. You gave me that advice while we were there, and I tried meditating, and Betazoids would walk by and be like, "You're just thinking I am meditating over and over and over again." Yeah. And I was like, I guess I am. And then a couple of them would you would talk and they would be outright startled. And they would go, "Who's the android?" And I'd be like, "He's not an android. He's just my friend Nick." And they're like, "No, he's an android because I can't read his thoughts. He's some kind of cyborg."
Oh, that's what they kept saying. But I actually think, I for a while there, I did think yoga for sure. Meditation for sure. But then the more I got into it, I realized, you know what? It's because I'm Italian.
Ooh.
And I think that the Italian heritage is what did it. I think that lineage of Southern Italian people that I come from, Caserta, Giulianella, close to Naples, I think that group itself is just unreadable from people like the Betazoids.
So then when they said that you were impenetrable because you were in fact an artificial life form, They
meant Italian.
They meant, okay. I guess that checks out because you're Italian and they can't read your thoughts. So ipso facto, Italiano.
One and one together there. That makes two.
Can we talk about how difficult it is performing stand-up comedy on Betazoid though? That is
They
tough.
loved me
because
they had no idea what was coming. And I will say it was hard to watch your shows because once they didn't like you, they would not only heckle you, but they would heckle you by saying your punchlines.
That was the worst I've ever.
They knew what was coming.
Oh my God!
They would just drill it home.
I walked onto the first time when we were over at the Jester Shuffle, which was the comedy club we started out at. I walk up on stage, I get the mic, and I go, "Hey, I'm Heaton. It's great to be here." And someone went, "You're lying." And
you hate it.
I went, no, I'm having a great time. And somebody went, "No, you're not. You feel nervous because you keep thinking pervy thoughts about our women." And I was like,
he was nailing it, right? Spot on.
Yeah, we need to have some level of polite lying here for this to work. And it went from bad to worse. And they would yell my punchlines before I said them.
Yeah, that was the real problem. They would yell your punchlines. I mean, I'll be honest, I jumped in, but it was only because everybody else was doing it.
Yeah, and you already know my punchlines.
And I've heard your material. Yeah.
It was, I wasn't, normally I'd be mad about that, but everybody was doing it. So, I mean,
here's the thing. They typically, I think the reason why comedy works there, despite them knowing the punchlines, is it's still a matter of how you say it. It's all about delivery and timing and everything still, which is really the base element of comedy, which is timing, as you know.
Yeah.
And I think that in your case, they weren't even willing to give that a chance based on your little pervy thoughts.
Yeah, which I don't know. It's the sensation I had is like, imagine being at church camp and being caught ogling a Victoria's Secret catalog, like that feeling of shame. That's how I felt constantly on Betazoid, and there was nothing I could do about it. There's not like a mental cold shower you can take, and the women are very attractive, and it's a fairly balmy, temperate place. I'd say it was like mid 80s most of the time we were there, 70 to 80 degrees. So like women are dressed in sundresses and stuff, and and apparently I'm some kind of heinous pervert, which I didn't realize because the background chatter isn't normally out and about. I went on a Tinder date, Nick, because I like to scope out the ladies on planets I visit, and
I'll be honest, I didn't ask you about this while we were there because I knew how it was going to turn out. I think that was pretty obvious.
It was just a train wreck.
Yeah.
Oh God! Yeah. Like, because we sit down, and the first thing she says is, "Well, you're disappointed, aren't you?" And I was like, no. I'm like, no, it's really great to meet you there, Lena. And she's like, I'm disappointed too. And I'm like, well, okay, in my case, I can't help you reading my mind. In your case, you totally had the ability to not tell me you were disappointed. Only upshot is we both agreed to split a bottle of wine. But but then, okay, 2 glasses of wine in. She's like, okay, just so you know, I am looking for something substantive. I'm looking for something meaningful and long-term. And I was like, oh, me too. And then she gave me the most withering look because what I was thinking is, I'm leaving here in 2 days. Like, surely you knew this. I'm just going to go through this charade and maybe we'll get naked. And that is, it was just not at all what I don't know what she wanted from me, but I was not delivering it.
Maybe the truth.
Well, she got it.
She got it herself, but maybe she would have liked it if you actually put it out there, as opposed to trying to sell yourself as you would on a Tinder date on a different planet.
Wait, so are you thinking that, like, if I had just, like, been...
I think if you would have come right out and just said, this is what I'm looking for, this is who I am, and she'd have been like, oh, that's honest, that's truthful, I see that. Then maybe you would have had a better chance.
If we go back to Betazoid, I'm going to try that with stand-up, to like walk on stage and be like, well, as you can see, I'm not very impressed with you as an audience. And like, maybe they'll find that funny.
I mean, I chuckled involuntarily, so potentially, yeah.
But okay, the other thing too is they got stuff wrong though. Like, so for new listeners,
punchlines, you mean?
Well, they bungled the timing on that horribly.
Well, they're not comedians.
No. But like, so people that are new to the program, you and I travel with a retinue now because you have incurred, or not, you've not incurred, rather, you have saved a number of lives of beings throughout the galaxy who now owe you a life debt. Which,
the count is as of now.
Yeah, it's
Lord knows.
Six Wookiees, a Gungan, and a protocol droid.
Yeah.
And that's not including the pets that they have, which they do. They have some porgs and an iguana. It's really a big, but we left the animals
did I tell you the protocol droid got a toaster?
Oh, good for him. That's great. Yeah. Okay. That's cute. I get that. That's nice.
Yeah. Same. No, it works. It's like a good toaster. So
no. That's actually really cute.
We had a toaster, and that was a whole thing. So I'm not going to get into it right now.
Well, anyway, my point is we're traveling with all of them, and they were like, so are you and Chewbacca dating? One of the Wookiees? And I was like, no, we're not dating. And they're like, you obviously have feelings for each other. And I was like, well, your Betazoid radar must be pretty far off because I do not have a crush on a 7-foot-tall female Wookiee, even if she's very talented and we have similar interests.
I'll be honest, Heaton. I've said this before. I'm pretty sure I'll say it again. We can all see it, but it's in the air, okay?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were a Betazoid. I thought you were an Italian.
I am, thus why they can't read my mind. But we, being Italian, also have what we call a love language.
Well,
we can tell when people are being emotional and feeling from that place. I'm very empathetic. You know that about me.
It's true.
I'm incredibly good at telling when people are feeling uncomfortable and or in love. And in this case, I'm just saying I get a hint of both, actually.
Well, agree to disagree, but I will say I am very much looking forward to going to the Italian homeworld, wherever that is.
That's just Italy. It's just in Italy.
Yeah. Oh, wait, like in Europe?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's on Earth.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Who knew? Oh, all right. Nice. We have more in common than I thought.
I'm just upset that you've never asked before.
Yeah, I don't know. I just assumed it was a moon or something. I don't know why. I don't know.
Gotcha.
It feels like a moon people to me.
I can see that.
Yeah. All right. Well, overall, I would go back to Betazoid, but
Beta Z.
Excuse me, Beta Z.
See what I'm talking about? It's just like right there. It's like so weird. Beta Z, Betazoid, Beta Z. You know, I don't blame you.
I'll go back, but I need to like do. I don't know, make a tinfoil helmet or something first, because that was just emotionally traumatic. It's worse than being naked.
I have heard that Botox does it. If you get some Botox, I heard that'll stop it too.
Huh. Okay. All right.
That was some rumor on the planet, but you know.
I'm going to give Betazoid 6 out of 10. How about you?
Oh, I really rather enjoyed it. I mean, the food was great. Some of the local stuff. I like that they had some of those kind of places that you don't read about on the websites.
Yeah.
We had a really good tour guide. She was very kind, and she didn't love you.
I thought she was
Sarah didn't find you.
I thought Sarah was rather unprofessional, in my opinion.
Well, you know, you were thinking
lecturing me in front of a group and really browbeating me. And then, I did not. I felt very unsafe emotionally around her.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'll say this: some of the other people in our convoy, including all the Wookiees and Joe Blobe, and we did have some other people from Earth, which I thought was pretty fun. Mm-hmm. So that was cool. But regardless, Sarah, you know, she showed us around, and we got to go to those like underground places where you eat, you know, that you get the food that you don't normally get.
Speakeasies are a thing. Betazoids really like speakeasies. That's becoming a vogue.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, so, we thought we were going to a hardware store, and I was like, why are we going to a hardware store? This is ridiculous. I wasted my money. By the way, I'm thinking this. I'm not saying
you thought
this.
It. You didn't say it. No, I agree.
And then Sarah turns around and she's like, it's a speakeasy. Please don't insult me. And I'm like, I did. Oh, right.
Was that when she slapped you in the face? Or was that
she slapped me in the face for another reason that I don't want to go into. But it again could be interpreted as flattering in a certain light.
You know what? And I assumed she was right, so I didn't do anything. Because normally, you know me, I'll step up for you anytime. But I kind of had a feeling.
By then, I was like, I actually do kind of deserve that one.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. So the food was great. Enjoyed that element of it. Overall, would go back. I'm going to give Beta Z a 9.3.
Wow.
Might be my highest rating. I don't remember.
Okay.
But 9.3.
All right, Nick. Well, good journey. Until next week.
This is a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
That's the show. Sweet Lord, I'm excited about Picard. I think it's going to be the best Star Trek series since Deep Space Nine. So happy. Thank you, Nick Sperdute, for coming on to discuss and for our adventure on Beta Z. Thanks, Taylor Standridge, for audio engineering. The factoid I dropped at the beginning of the episode about blue skies and Data and Children of Mars, that all comes from the YouTube channel Screen Crush. Due credit to you, sir. Good job on that homework. Until next week, tally-ho!